Hey cats, it's Ed, Fox Mulder Bud here. Today I have another intriguing episode of the Shoe Files for you. This is a series where we dig into some sort of running shoe mystery or history in a bid to find the truth. Because it's out there apparently. If you have been enjoying the channel and you haven't done so yet, help us out by hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell for notifications. It helps us out a massive amount too if you give this video a thumbs up like and share it with your running buddies. Danke schön. First up today on the Shoe Files, what really is FLYTE foam? I'm loving FLYTE Foam Blast Turbo that features in that new METASPEED Sky Plus. There's loads of different variants of FLYTE foam though. What's inside each of them? ASICS aren't giving too much away, I'll tell you that. They do state the material is not EVA, so that narrows it down a little bit. But they also say that FLYTE foam is just like a generic name for a range of different foams. I guess it's a little bit like where New Balance utilised the term Fresh Foam and Fresh Foam X to categorise different shoes. It seems that standard FLYTE foam is made as an EVA alternative, but does obviously have the extra advantage of a much lower weight, but the same amount of cushion as you would typically see in a standard EVA shoe. The popular FLYTE Foam Blast has higher levels of shock absorption, which ASICS suggest is much better for a long distance use case scenario. Blast Turbo, is that the same as FLYTE Foam Turbo? I'm not entirely sure. That's featured in the METASPEED series of shoes, and ASICS state it is their top grade compression. FLYTE foam appears to have some type of gas content added to the foam, perhaps when it's in its more liquid state. This adds some sort of very thin walls around the bubbles that you get within the foam. I think it's the bubbles that actually generate that sort of energy return. I think there's some sort of nylon fibres mixed into it as well. It's all very scientific and probably beyond my comprehension. As I say, it does appear to be a nylon based foam that we find in FLYTE Foam Turbo. I think the texture isn't unlike the PEBAX based foam that we find in Nike's Zoom X shoes, but it's certainly not the same, and nor is every version of Zoom X that we found so far. So there's certainly different foams across the FLYTE foam range, all with different types of properties. I don't think ASICS are going to be telling us exactly what's in it anytime soon. So what is FLYTE foam? Well, it's a whole load of different foams. The next question to pose is, do some shoes actually work better for heel striking runners? I think this whole argument's gone a bit cold recently. Nobody seems to talk about it as much as they used to. I think where you've got these shoes with massive amounts of foam in the heel, clearly the companies are expecting you to use that in some way, and I think people are slowly moving away from the whole heel striking is bad thing. Some people do it and they never get injured. Some people run on their mid to forefoot and they never get injured. So yeah, let's explore. So do some shoes help if you are heel striking? Well, there's actually a blog written by Nike that was released very recently. They published this one in February of 2022. They state that a higher heel to toe drop will actually assist heel strikers, and there needs to be some level of rear foot stability built into the shoe. They also reckon that a beveled heel is also advantageous, so an angled curve on the lateral side of the shoe's outsole. Nike suggests that the 10mm drop in the PEGASUS line of shoes is probably ideal if you're a heel striker. Along with that heel clip that you get in the VOMERO as well to add stability, again that midsole offset and the beveled edge that we find on these shoes could really help you out. There was a Feetfellow article that was updated in May of this year. There's some odd contradictory information in this one. I did find it quite a strange read. They had a study from Harvard University that suggested that you've got about double the number of heel strikers to forefoot or midfoot strikers. But they did find that heel strikers suffered from slightly more frequent, milder injuries than those who land on the forefoot or midfoot. And then they listed a whole load of different shoes that would be really great if you were a heel striker. So it's kind of like they're trying to sell you the shoes but sort of telling you off at the same time. It's kind of like offering someone 20 quid and then telling them off when you give it to them. Again, those shoes included Nike's PEGASUS model, that one always seems to be popular, and also the Gel Cayano 28 from ASICS. I think we're at a point now in 2022 when it's proven really that the different types of footwear that we've got available simply move some of the load to different parts of the legs. If you're a forefoot runner, then you're probably going to have a lot more movement in the ankle, and then if you're heel striking, there's probably more motion in the hips and the knees. But I think we have to remember that where under your body that your foot strikes is actually key here. Your foot ideally should be making contact directly under your hips and with a bent knee as well, so you're making use of the whole mechanical part of your body, the way it's supposed to work. I think confusing a heel strike with overstriding is a very common issue. I think if you're running injury free, then carry on using the shoes that are working for you. Stick to your current form. If you've been running for years and years, you've got no issues, why would you want to change that? I think my conclusion here is there isn't much in it really between a shoe that's built for heel strikers or just a general running shoe. And that's probably why we see more shoes that are set up for heel strikers, because there's far more of those out there than anything else. Recently I watched a really interesting video from the YouTube channel Rose Anvil. They do some great videos where they cut open boots and trainers and sneakers and all sorts to actually see what makes them up. It's really fascinating. They did do a video recently surrounding the on-running Cloud Monster. That's a shoe I tested out earlier in the year that promised maximal cushion, but it really didn't deliver. It's a much firmer ride than expected. I didn't really feel that it had all that much energy return in it whatsoever. I think Rose Anvil were trying to find out whether the shoe was a bit of a gimmick, you know, those on-cloud pods actually all they're cracked up to be. The Cloud Monster certainly wasn't a shoe that I'd consider calling maximally cushioned, that's for sure. Now the cats at Rose Anvil test the shoes out in all sorts of different ways. It's kind of like a bit of a garage test, you know, they try burning the upper to see what it's made of. They prod it, they probe it, they cut them open. But one crazy way they tried to test the energy return of the midsole and the outsole, I suppose, was by actually dropping a big metal bar onto it and then seeing how far the bar flies back up. Obviously they slow all this down and then measure how far it goes, and they showed that the on-running Cloud Monster really wasn't all it was cracked up to be in terms of energy return. I mean, it performed reasonably well. It shows that the bar flew up to about 5.5 inches, but then when you compare that to a non-running shoe in the Yeezy 350, it actually flew back up about 9 inches, which is colossal. That's boost material in there, right? The one that everybody tells me is really firm and doesn't give any energy back. Yes, it's an unscientific test, you know, there's probably a few little inaccuracies here and there, but you get the general idea, right? I don't think boost is really all that old hat, but then again, I do think that there are different versions of boost out there, as with some of these other foams, like we talked about with FLYTE foam earlier. It still does seem to deliver some colossal energy return. Now, I would love to know the actual energy return measurements for some of the other foams that people enjoy, like Zoom X, FLYTE Foam Blast. Really soft shoes perhaps aren't always the best when it comes to that energy return. I mean, Zoom X isn't the softest foam out there, but it does seem to produce some of the best results. FLYTE Foam Blast Turbo in the METASPEED Sky Plus does seem to be a little bit ahead of the rest. Perhaps what we actually have in those shoes is a really careful balance between the softness of the foam, the plate rigidity and the position, or is it merely there to just help stabilize the actual foam itself? Out and out softness just doesn't actually seem to achieve the best results. So does softness equate to energy return? Absolutely not. I think it is down a little bit to the actual position of that plate or stabilizing element. Go and check out Rose Anvil's channel if you haven't seen it. I'd be surprised if you haven't. It is fantastic. We close the shoe files until next time. A quick musical interlude for you. Released in 2001, I Get Wet by Andrew WK still remains one of my favourite albums of all time. It's a great album as well if you're out there running, get it onto the headphones to really get the adrenaline pumping. I guess it's kind of hard to actually pigeonhole this one. There are some dance elements to it, but some incredibly distorted guitars as well. It's got a sort of speed metal vibe about it. I guess sort of dance music mixed with meatloaf, I guess you could call it. It kicks off with It's Time to Party, which is kind of like an introduction to the whole Andrew WK universe. Everybody knows the track Party Hard. Once you hear that, it's Go, go, go. Track 4 is probably my favourite on this album, which is called Ready to Die. I've no idea what this track's about, but it generates some serious kind of emotions and feelings whenever I hear it. I think if anybody's ever put you down in your life or made you feel small, then Ready to Die is the track to hear, because it says, I'm not gonna take this lying down, bring it on. Got to do it, I Get Wet, and Don't Stop Living in the Red finish the album off. This really is an outstanding sonic assault on the ears and the mind, and it should improve your pace, I reckon, by about 20 to 30 seconds per mile. There's a fantastic picture of the man himself as well, stood, you know, by the sea there with his really dirty clothes on. I shan't show you the front cover because it might upset a few people, but it's a brilliant album. I got to meet the guy and he was an awesome fellow. I got very, very wet as well, I can remember that. Andrew WK in Bournemouth. I had to buy another t-shirt actually because I was so wet. Go and check it out, guys. I Get Wet by Andrew WK. Thanks for tuning in and exploring some more mysteries with me in the Shoe Files. Probably my favourite series on the channel at the moment. Hit that subscribe button, click the bell below for notifications, and give this video a thumbs up like, plus share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you